Welcome back to the Nullified Take, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Heroes versus Villains. That's right, we're back. We're going to be doing top 5 talking points for each episode again this season after the episodes air, and then with the longer format podcast, that would still be available at the end of the week. So if you do want to hear some extended thoughts on the episode as I talk to Maki, Kahuna and Michelle, and whoever other guests I bring on weekly, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and you'll always be informed of all of that content. So let's get into the top 5 talking points for this episode. As expected, George comes in with possibly the biggest target on his back this season, especially in that villains tribe, and he works extremely hard in this first episode. I was really impressed by his social skills as he was walking around and making jokes and, connecting with people on various things. I thought his social game was extremely good in this first episode. He clearly went home and worked on that coming into this season, which is very positive for George. If he can survive a couple of votes, it may mean that he will have some more friends this time that he can play with, and especially if he does get to a jury, he's going to need votes. So I feel like he's already changing his strategy here in the first episode, but he's working very hard on creating connections with Jackie, with Angeli, and both of them ends up being eliminated in round 1. So he's now left without both of his Karas for this season. He tried to go back to what worked for him in that first season by aligning with one of the older women in the tribe, someone that he could trust, and something that feels familiar to him. He was trying to replicate that again, and some of the players that are coming back this season, some of those returning players, they're really onto him very early on here, and they're not going to give him any opportunity to get a foothold in this game. Simon and Geordie, they really badly want him out. Simon has seen firsthand what this guy can do, and he does remind us here in this first episode that George was a part of his elimination when he went home in that first season that he played. Michael wants him out from the newbies, but ultimately he ends up being saved by an injury, and I think that this is going to be a controversial talking point for a lot of people out there. Believe it or not, the guy is in trouble. He's probably the biggest character this season coming back, and somehow he ends up injured, going to hospital. There's a 24-hour rule, which means he can be out of the game for 24 hours but still remain within the game. Now, it does seem really convenient that this happened within the first episode when he was in danger, and I don't know how many people are going to talk out about that when they cover the show, but to me, it seemed very convenient that he was pulled out when he was in danger. Now, ultimately, I am a George fan, so I'm happy that he's still there, and I'm happy still to be able to watch it, but you've got to look at it objectively from both ways. George being pulled from the game probably saved him in this spot this time around. Number 2, Simon is fully embracing the villain role this season. I am enjoying what Simon Mee is bringing for us to the TV show. He's stealing from the Heroes tribe within the first challenge, getting some of that food items from Sam and putting it into their podium. He's also trying to sabotage Shawn by pulling him down in the challenge as he's trying to go back up this course to win it. And his tribe, I think, had to let him know, hey, let him go, let him be. There was no way he was going to win. But I'm loving what I'm seeing there, and then ultimately also burning George's hat in the fire. I don't know how many people stayed back until the end of the episode to see that, but when he walks away from it, he actually burns George's hat in the fire in the middle of the tribal council. So those are all very funny moments here that we get to see early on in the season. So far, I believe that the production team and the casting team must be loving the fact that they brought him back because he's fully embracing it. The one fear that I do have for Simon is that once again, people are onto him very early on. They're seeing that he's this big alpha male guy. He admits himself he's very competent and confident, and that he's always going to take a leadership role. I do think this tribe really needs him from a challenge point of view and from a physicality standpoint to go up against the likes of a Shawn, who's an absolute workhorse and a beast when it comes to challenges on that Heroes tribe. But people are onto him very early on. I don't know if he's going to be able to play this out in front game the whole season, but I'm loving what he's bringing to the show, and I'm hoping that he sticks around, obviously a little bit longer than he did last season. Number 3, Haley finds his scapegoat early on in Rogue. A combination of great gameplay here by Haley and sitting back and looking for fractures within her tribe, because she acknowledges that she is a winner coming back into the season. She acknowledges that winners have never made it past the first vote on Australian Survivor when they've returned. So just by her making it past that first tribal council, she will already be the best winner ever to return on Australian Survivor season. But everybody is aware that she won her first game. Everybody's aware that she's super dangerous when it comes to her social skills. And she's also great at challenges, which I have to say, even in that challenge where they had to jump over the cubes, some great form doing her backflip into the mud, getting out on the other side. She's just once again reminding us why she's such a great all-round player, because you see her physical ability, you know she's got the brains, you know she's got the social game as well, which she's showing us in this first episode. But people are aware of that, they know that she's won. But luckily for Hayley, Rogue is possibly one of the worst players we've ever seen play this game. And for those players that are listening to this, because I know some of the players like to follow these channels sometimes, I'm not trying to go after you as a person outside of the game, but I'm really going after how you're acting in the show and what the edit is showing us and how you're playing the game. So if I'm criticizing, it's based on the game. So please, Rogue, if you're listening to this, don't take it personally, but there was a lot of tone deafness coming from Rogue for this episode. Like, I mean, she was boasting about being the biggest hero. She clearly is one of those personalities that always has to be that one up from anyone. You know, everybody knows that person that when you tell them you've done something, they'd be like, oh yeah, well, I did this and this better. You know, she's that kind of person, which I know if I was out there, you know, and I'm starving and I'm cold and I'm miserable on an island playing the game, she would annoy the hell out of me. But the worst comment that she possibly could have made was the one that she made to Nina, when she said to Nina that I'm more African American than you, which to me is absolutely crazy. Now, as someone that is actually from Africa, who was born in South Africa, I would never say that to an African American, and I don't even think she is actually from Africa. I just think she's done a lot of work there. We don't claim her, so I don't know why she's saying that whatsoever. Moving on from that one to number 4, Sneaky Steve has a mission this season. He is out for revenge, and he's pretending to be all good with Shawnee, because he does need Shawnee to think that it's water under the bridge, where you can work with her this season. But he's saying that in his first season, he was trying to be a villain, but he was more like an apprentice villain, so he was a student. So the big storyline about Sneaky Steve and Shawnee for me this season is going to be, can the student, the apprentice, outsmart the master? Because Shawnee seriously is a master at this game. She's proven herself twice now, and Sneaky Steve had a frontline seat of how she played the game the first time she was out there. It's going to be an interesting storyline. One of the things that made me worried for Steve here early on was that he was quite open very early on about the fact that he wants to get Shawnee out, and he let that information slip to a lot of the new players in the game, who I don't know if it's the right time to go that aggressive this early on, and maybe it's because he felt the heat and he just wanted to make sure the target's not coming his way, and he could tell the newbies, hey, I'm a vote for you if you want to go after some of the vets. But I'm worried about that. Luckily for him, when Shawnee went around to do the rounds, and when she spoke to the likes of a Michael and some of those other newbies, they all denied that her name was being mentioned, which is not great for Shawnee, but it's definitely good for Stevie that that's the case. Shawnee at this stage may still be underestimating him, because she said that he is a non-lethal threat, but sometimes the non-lethal threats are the threats for her, and those are the people that she needs to take out. I don't know if she comes after Stevie immediately, but I am interested in the storyline. I want to see where Sneaky Steve goes. At this point, he is giving me everything that I would possibly want from a returning player. So once again, great character, great casting, and glad to have him back on this season. Number 5, Shawnee has a case of paranoia, or is it maybe a healthy dose of awareness? She was seen probably floundering a bit more in this episode than what we've ever seen. After George leaves for hospital, she is very aware that outside of George, she's probably the biggest character or the biggest target out there. This is her third time playing the game. They should be getting rid of her early on, but somehow a lot of these experienced players don't seem to be targeting her immediately, and they find it strange that she is so paranoid. She once again shows us in this first episode that her social game is top notch. She makes great connections with a bunch of people out there, but the biggest connection she makes is with Liz. The relationship could come in clutch if the newbies do trust Liz with some of this information that Stevie is trying to come for her. She might be able to sniff it out and then make sure that she clips Stevie's wings, or take him out directly before he can take her out. I have a feeling that with the way that the episode sort of went, and with Shawnee being so vulnerable or feeling vulnerable in this stage, she's going to want to work with George this season. So I think Shawnee is going to try and, especially now that Angeli and also Jackie is gone, I think she's going to try and find a way to work with George moving forward, because that's another bigger target, like she said in this episode, that is in front of her. So people will always want to take out George before they take out Shawnee. So I do think it's dangerous to play with a snake because it can bite you. But in Shawnee's case, she's probably the second biggest snake. I don't know if that's a good analogy, on that tribe. So maybe she does need to play with the snake. You know, she needs to play with George later into the game so that people don't come after her immediately. And I've got a feeling she's going to try and protect him to the best of her ability in this game. And maybe him sitting out in this first round because of this medical thing, that could be his saving grace this season. Bonus content, just number 6 here. I won't do 6 every single episode, but I did find it funny to see villains will be villains no matter what, basically. Choosing to sacrifice one of their own, even with a chance that George may not come back. It could have meant that they would go 3 people down this early on in the season. It's a bold move, and they send Angeli packing in the villain's tribe. So they are 2 people down now with George coming back into the game. So I think production really didn't see this coming or didn't want this to happen, because this means that they've lost so many people early on. We might get an additional non-elimination episode this season due to this unforeseen circumstance, which is never my favorite, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Those are my 5/top 6 talking points for episode 1. Like I said, an extended version of the recap will come later on in this week in the podcast. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this episode? Did I miss anything that you found to be extremely interesting in this first episode? I'll always look forward to the comments. I always read them, and it does help with the YouTube algorithms. Hit a like on this video, consider subscribing, and see you next time. Bye.